But his little son, when he wasn't helping his father, and often when he was as well, spent much of his time buried in big volumes that he borrowed from the affable that he borrowed from the affable that he borrowed from the affable gentry and interested persons of a country round about. And his parents were very fond of him, and rather proud of him too, though they didn't let on his hearing. So he was left to go to his own way and read as much as he liked. And instead of frequently getting a cough on the side of the head, as might very well have happened to him, he was treated more or less unequal by his parents, who sensibly thought it a very fair division of labor that they should supply to the practical knowledge, and he the book learning. They knew that the book learning often came in useful at a pinch, and spite what their neighbors said, what the boy chiefly doubled in was natural history and fairy tales, and he just took them as they came, in a sandwichy sort of way, without making any distinctions, and really his course of reading strikes one as other sensible. One evening, the shepherd, who for some nights past had been disturbed and preoccupied, and of his usual mental balance, came home all over the tremble, and sitting down at the table, where his wife and son were peacefully employed. She with her seam, he in following out the adventures of a giant with no heart in his body, exclaimed with much agitation, "It's all up with me, Maria. Never no more can I go up on them there downs. Was it ever so?" "Now don't you take on like that," said his wife, who was a very sensible woman. "But tell us about it first. But tell us all about it first. Whatever it is has given to you this this shake up. Whatever it is has given to you shake up. And then me and you and the son here, between us we ought to be able to get the bottom of it." "It began some of nights ago," said the shepherd. "You know that cave up there? I never liked it, somehow, and the sheep never like it either. And when sheep don't like the thing there's generally some reason for it. Well, for some time past there's been faint noises coming from that cave, noises like heavy sighings, many with grunts mixed up in them, and sometimes a snoring, far away down, real snoring, yet somehow not honest snoring, like you and me on nights you know." "I know," remarked Boy quietly. Of course I was terrible frightened," the shepherd went on. "Yet somehow I couldn't keep away. So this very evening, before I come down, I took the cast round by the cave, quietly. And there, oh Lord, I saw him at last, as plain as you." "Saw who?" said his wife, beginning to share in her husband's nervous terror. "Why him, I'm telling you," said the shepherd. He was sticking halfway out of the cave, and seemed to be enjoying the cool in the evening in a poetical sort of way. "He was as big as 4 cart horses, and all covered with shiny scales, deep blue scales at the sort top of him, shading off a tender sort of green below. As he breathed, there was a sort of flicker over his nostrils that you see over the chalk of roads. On a baking windless day in summer, he had his chin on his paws, and I should say he was meditating about things. Oh yes, a peaceful sort of beast enough, and not ramping or carrying or nor nothing or doing anything but was but what was quite right and proper. I admit all of that. And yet what am I to do? And yet what am I to do? And yet what am I to do? Scales, you know, and claws, and a trail for certain. Though I didn't see the end of him, I ain't used to him. I don't hold with them, and that's a fact." The boy, who had apparently been absorbed in his book during his father's recital, now closed the volume, yawned, clasped his hands behind his head, and said sleepily, "Is it all right, father? Don't you worry. It's only a dragon." "Only a dragon?" cried his father. "What do you mean, sitting there? You and your dragons, only a dragon indeed. And what do you know about it?" "'Cause it is, and 'cause I do know," replied the boy quietly. "Look here, father, you know we've each of us got our line. You know about sheep and weather and things. I know about dragons. I always said, you know that I, you know, You know that cave up there was a dragon cave. I always said it must have belonged to the dragon sometime, and ought to belong to a dragon now. If rules count for anything, well, now you tell me it has got a dragon, and so that's all right. I'm not half as much surprised as when you told me it hadn't got a dragon. Rules always come right if you was quietly waiting. Now, please just leave this to all to me. Now, now please just leave this all to me, and I'll stroll up tomorrow morning. No, in the morning I can't. I've got a whole heap of things to do. Well, perhaps in the evening, if I'm quite free, I'll go up and have a talk to him, and you'll find it will be all right. Only please don't you go worrying around there without me. You don't understand them a bit, and they're very sensitive, you know. He's quite right, father, said He's quite right, father, said sensible mother, as he says dragons in his line and not ours. He's wonderful knowing about book beasts, as everyone allows, and to tell the truth, I'm not half happy in my own mind, thinking of that poor animal lying alone up there, without a bait or hot supper or anyone to change the news with, and maybe we'll be able to do something for him. And if we ain't quite respectable, our boy will find out quick enough. Has got a pleasant sort of way with him, and makes everybody tell him everything. Next day, after he'd had his tea, the boy strolled up the chalky track that led to the summit of the downs, and there, sure enough, he found the dragon, stretched lazily on the sward in front of his cave. The view of that point was a magnific The view from that point was a magnificent one. To the right and left, the bare and willingly leagues of downs. In front, the vale, with its clustered homesteads and its shreds of white roads running through the orchards, and well-tilled acreage, and far away a hint of grey old cities on the horizon. A cool breeze played over the surface of grass, and the silver shoulder of a large moon was showing above distant junipers. No wonder the dragon seemed in a peaceful and contented mood. Indeed, as the boy approached, he could hear the beast purring with happy regularity. Well, we'll live and learn, he said. "No, well, we'll live and learn," he said to himself. None of my books ever told me that dragons pured. "Hola, dragon," said the boy quietly, when he had got up. "Hola, dragon," said the boy quietly, when he had got up to him. The dragon, on hearing the approaching footsteps, made the beginning of the courteous effort to rise. But when he saw it was a boy, he set his eyebrows severely. "Now don't you hit me," he said, "or bang stones, or squirt water, or anything. I won't have it, I tell you." "Not going to hit you," said the boy wearily, dropping on the grass beside the beast. "And don't for goodness sake keep on saying don't. I hear so much of it, and it's monotonous and makes me tired. I've simply looked in to ask you how you were and all that sort of thing. But if I'm the way, but if I'm the way, but if I'm in the way, I can easily clear out. I've got lots of friends, and no one can say I've lots of friends, and no one can say I'm in habit of showing myself in where I'm not wanted. No, 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 don't go off in a huff," said the dragon hastily. "Fact is, I'm happy up here as the day is long, never without an occupation, dear fellow, never without an occupation, and yet between ourselves it is a trifle dull at times." The boy bit off stalk of grass and chewed it. "Going to make a long stay here? Going to make a long stay here?" he asked, politely. "Can't hardly say it at present," replied the dragon. "It seems a nice place enough, but I've only been here a short time, and one must look about it and reflect and consider before settling down. It's rather a serious thing, settling down. Besides, now I'm going to tell you something you'd never guess if you tried ever so. Fact is, I'm such a confoundedly lazy beggar." "You surprise me," said the boy civilly. "It's the sad truth," the dragon went on, settling down between his paws and evidently delighted to have found a listener at last. And I fancy that's really how I came to be here. You see, all the other fellows were so active and earnest and all that sort of thing. always rampaging and skirmishing and scouring the desert sands and pacing the margin of the sea.